You're listening to the Afterbuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
Hey guys, welcome to Game Control Rewind. This is our first edition, and we're going to be talking up some Bioshock Infinite Rewind, going through Bioshock Infinite, discussing it. But before we get started, let me go ahead and introduce my fellow co-hosts who are going to be chatting it up with me. We've got Grant Kohrmann all the way across the room. Grant Kohrmann.
Not the street.
There you go. Yeah, now it's all the way across the room.
It's the universe.
You are literally like against a wall, like stuck on a wall. Blah. And then next to him, also stuck on the wall, blah, is Raychul Moore.
Hi, guys.
Hey guys, next to me, you may know him from Pixel by Pixel, Patrick Dees.
What's going on, guys?
Also going to be joining us regularly for some Game Control Rewind, discussing some games with us. And guys, I'm Dave Klein, and in the booth we have with us the one and only John Quick.
John.
That you do.
John Quick.
John now on Twitter, quick.
John now on
What?
Quick. I am in fact a steampunk nightmare. Thank you, Lower Third, for introducing that to me. And we're gonna be talking about a fantastic, fun little game. Dave, get us
So,
going.
Bioshock Infinite Rewind, if you guys have comments and questions, you can call in 424-256-1729. Definitely call in, chat it up with us.
But we should say this is going to be completely non-spoiler free. We're going to spoil the shit out of this game
This
for you
is
guys.
spoiler filled.
message.
Yes.
Spoiler filled. We're going to talk everything about the game. We're going to talk the endings. We're going to about the ending, which is huge in this game. We're going to talk about the story, the gameplay, everything. So if you have not played the game and you don't want it ruined, do not watch this.
No.
Otherwise, check us out and come chat with us and call in 424-256-1729 and talk with us on the live chat as well, 1 p.m. Pacific time every single week on Afterbuzz TV. So let's go ahead and start up, and let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the story and where we start off with the characters and kind of wrap through the story. You start off as Booker, and this is the first one with Bioshock where you actually play as a character who has a name, who's not essentially just you. He has a name. He has a character, Booker DeWitt. And you start off by being launched through a lighthouse into this world of Columbia.
Well, no, you weren't. In the other Bioshocks, you weren't. You weren't a woman. You were a guy. You were another character.
Well,
Yeah, but he didn't have a name.
But he didn't have a name. He didn't
Subject
talk.
Delta
I didn't
and
interact
Bioshock
with the
2.
universe.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't interact. This is the first time that you have a character who's constantly interacting with other characters on his, like, talking. He has a voice. He has it. He's not as much of a shell. He's more of a character.
Yes.
Very specific character too.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very well. And then, I mean, so this is one universe that we have, is the presented universe of Booker DeWitt, who is now in the universe of his alter ego, Zachary Comstock, who, as we found out at the end, is the same
Oh,
person.
you ruined the ending.
Oh, no, there it goes right there. The ending is ruined.
Yes.
But, I mean, let's go ahead and then talk about, though, the ending, because that's the big thing about this game that everyone wants to talk about is
Well,
the
it was
ending.
done out of order, and
Yeah.
that's what I think is throwing a lot of people off. Because if you actually piece together everything and put it in order, it makes perfect sense, and it's just spelt out really weird.
Yeah, I
It's
think
like a Yoda quote. It's all backwards.
I think it
Like
makes
a
sense.
Yoda back of the box. That needs to be on the
Yes,
back
if
of the
you
box.
put it all together,
Enjoy
it makes
the
sense.
I think it makes sense too. I understood. I mean, I did go on some blogs after I played it to check out some thoughts and the whole parallel universe aspect of it. But you do throughout get enough of a glimpse through the audio vlogs that you listen to, or the way that they do that. They handle
It
that.
really starts to get
As long as you
more
listen to them all,
descriptive towards the
yeah.
end of it, though.
As long as you listen to them all, you do get hints where I pretty much saw a lot of it coming to the
So many
ending of what was going to
Elizabeths.
happen.
You're going backwards.
Yeah, so
aren't you?
basically, you're Booker DeWitt, and he is a soldier on Wounded Knee, and he was like what, 16 years old when he was in Wounded
Right.
Knee, and he gets to be able to be baptized, and baptism is going to erase all of his sins because he had killed women and children and all sorts of nasty things like that. And that is when the first break happens, the first rift, I guess, is one Booker does the baptism.
Right.
One Booker does not. And the Booker that does it gets all Christian and stuff, and he gets crazy, and that Booker becomes Comstock. But then there is the Booker that doesn't do it, and he's the one that goes on falling in love with a chick, getting her pregnant, giving birth to Anna. He's got all this debt. So then Comstock goes through the rift and gets Anna as the baby because he sees the future as he wants to get
Well,
rid
he
of.
saw a rift.
Well, what it was is he wants to bathe the world in flames to cleanse them like the baptism cleansed
There you
him.
go. That's the start.
But again, he saw that in a rift. That was how he knew
but
about.
he is sterile because of
Yeah.
all the rifting going on. He
Yeah.
is sterile,
When you
so
rift.
But still,
he needs
all
a
of it-
child.
This
And then
your
not just
gonads.
any child, right? He uses
His
the
own
Lutetis device.
seed.
Exactly. It's
So
big on the
that's why
blood.
he goes back
Absolutely.
to Booker and says, gives the child, repay your debt, or whatever the quote is, and that's when he gets Anna. But then
I thought it was
Anna
hilarious. A lot of
gets
people
stuck in the
online were
rift.
saying that. How desperate do you have to be to sell your daughter?
Very
Doesn't matter,
desperate.
like,
Look, if I had a kid, I wouldn't want it either. I'd be like,
to
please take it.
To some rifter.
Yes.
Well, look, he went into Infinite. He afterwards was constantly. He became even more drunk. He hated himself for it. He got the tattoo AD on his hand.
Yes.
Because Anna DeWitt, because he was so distraught about the decision
Well,
that
he
he
tried
made.
to save her,
Yeah,
but
and he
she
tried
got
to
stuck
save
in the
her.
rift, and her pinky got cut off. And that is why Elizabeth has the opening the rift powers, is because her physical self is trapped between two different parallels.
Now, something that we need to clarify too is that in this whole this mess of the plot, if you're just listening, I mean, obviously you play the game, so you know what we're talking about. But there are infinite parallel universes. There's not just two.
No,
but
there are millions.
There are millions. There's infinite.
Millions
Essentially, there are
of-
For
infinite
every
choices.
decision that could be made, there are different breakoffs from those decisions.
The quote that Elizabeth
And what
gives
they
at one
found was
point
the
is that
point-
there's millions of
Yeah.
Comstocks
Yes.
in the world. So
And that is why, to stop it at the very beginning, that's why Booker has to go back to the original baptism to stop the original break of dimensions.
Right, because everything that happens, they found the one point that mattered. The one point where anything that they could stop everything from possibly happening in any possible universe was to stop Comstock from happening.
Going back to the cradle, essentially.
Right, going back to the cradle.
Right.
Yes.
And that-
that's the baptism on Wounded Knee.
Yeah, so then that's the baptism at Wounded Knee.
Well, it's not at Wounded Knee. It's a baptism
Well,
somewhere.
past-
in the
Yeah.
Past
After-
Wounded Knee.
I just call it, yeah.
Which I think-
because there's two baptisms in the game. So the Wounded Knee one is the original, because then you get baptized at the beginning of the
Right.
game to get into Columbia.
Which is
Yeah.
quite a theme throughout this game, right? I mean, ultimately, Comstock's killed by baptism, Booker's killed at a baptism, and Songbird, you could make the argument, was killed via baptism,
Yeah.
which I found
That's
fantastic.
true, and that's a good
I
point.
needed more Songbird, though. I
Did
wanted
you?
more Songbird.
I didn't. I really had my fill of
loved
Songbird.
him. I loved
You know,
him.
it's this level of so it's an interesting, like, if you follow that down a weird rabbit hole, right? So if you've got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? So the Father being Comstock, Anna being
Oh, that's an
Christ.
interesting.
Yeah.
And
oh.
Songbird is like very akin to the Holy Ghost, right? Like he's kind of
resurrected
omnipresent. He's not
character.
there.
Yeah.
In a way, they would talk about the Holy Ghost and the Spirit. So
And then also, like with the previous Bioshock games, all of the monstrosities are technically resurrected characters. They've gone through like a transformation. They could
Absolutely.
be seen as dead or dormant, and now they are repurposed
Absolutely.
to something different.
So Booker is also, every time you die in the game, the Lotesses are going back and getting Booker and bringing him back. So your Booker dies, but he's like a clone, but not really. They go back and get him, and that's why you wake up
In his office
in
again.
the office, and you have the memories of what you had just done.
This is actually I actually have a little bit of a problem in this, in that Bioshock Infinite doesn't really, it breaks one of the great narrative laws, which is the law of double magic, in that there is both transdimensional travel and time travel, but it doesn't it doesn't really like tell you like which is which. Like, are we jumping between dimensions or are we traveling through time? And
No.
suddenly we're doing both. Like, how are we doing both?
We
I
weren't
don't know.
traveling through time.
Yeah, I didn't get that
No,
at all.
there was,
John.
No.
there was
no.
a point
I
when
think
you
it was
traveled through
memory.
time. Elizabeth opens a rift into 1984 or whatever it was with the return. There's a screenshot I have of that where the Return of the Jedi is shown on
Well, all right.
a French marquee.
Wait. Return of the Jedi?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it says it in
What?
French.
How did I miss
Yeah, it's
that?
fantastic.
Oh my
What
goodness.
the hell?
It's the Eiffel Tower rift, right?
Yeah, she can open rifts to other times.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
why the Lutesses made the siphon, is because they know that she has the power to do that, and they had to use the siphon to stifle her powers,
See,
so she couldn't
it
escape.
starts to get complicated when you start to like assume or like craft your own explanations around everything. This is what I've noticed about the story.
But that's what the
when you
siphon's
try to
for.
explain anything beyond the basic story, that
It starts to
Ken
get so
Levine and
convoluted
Rational,
sounding.
Right.
It starts to unravel, and like when you start to like say like, well, okay, Elizabeth was able to do it, but the Luteces couldn't, or wait a minute, could Elizabeth
Because
open
the
portals before the Lutece twins?
weren't physically in two different dimensions like Elizabeth was.
I agree with that. Was the point? Is that
It's
Elizabeth has these
difficult to-
powers
it's
because
difficult to pinpoint.
her pinky is in a different dimension. I agree with you.
Kind
That's
of.
why it's implied she has these powers.
But I don't know, by the end of the game, it seemed as though the Luteces were almost gods. They showed up when they wanted, did pretty much
That's
whatever
because
they
they're
wanted.
dead. The Luteces are dead.
No,
and
they're not.
Well, they're not technically dead, but they're stuck in between this weird in-between dimensions, and that's why they can hop around and go from here to there and pop up. And that's why they kind of guide Booker, and they know what's going to happen because they're stuck in between dimensions.
You know what's really interesting is that the only person that was affected by moving between the rifts and time traveling, for that matter, was Booker. Elizabeth didn't seem to be bothered by it that much, and the Lutece twins didn't have any physical maleffects from doing what they did.
Well, so did Comstock. Well, Booker is Comstock, but that's how he became sterile.
well, here's the
and
but
he was aging rapidly.
Here's
because of
another
it.
interesting thing with the story, though, is that we have the Lutece twins, and a lot of people are talking about how this really wasn't a story about Booker. It wasn't a story about Elizabeth. This was a story about the Luteces. And I agree with that point. I think that's a really interesting way to look at it and play
I
the
love
game.
those two.
Is if you play it through the perspective of the Luteces, where at the very beginning of the game, you have the marker when Booker goes through, and they're seeing if he flips heads or tails. And when he flips heads, they turn around and you see that it's like happened
Right,
hundreds and hundreds of
Sandwich board.
times, and that's how many times they've tried to bring a Booker do it through and failed.
Yes.
Actually,
yes.
123 times. Do you remember when
Yeah.
the code that you put into that is 122nd?
Right.
So the 123rd because you're killed at that baptism.
Yes.
And then every time
You're not the original.
And then every time that Booker dies, and you see a little scene with him like waking up and seeing the baby gun and
Yeah.
all that, because that is once again the Luteces have failed, so they have
So
to bring
they
a
bring
one
them back.
slightly different
Yes.
version over. So I do like that aspect
Yeah.
of it, going through and seeing the Luteces. But I did have some issues with elements of the story they brought in, which has to do with actually something that Owen Harper on the chat talked and asked about. And Owen Harper asks, I looked up spoilers, and one of them points towards Bioshock Infinite's ending, negating the events of Bioshock 1 and 2. Are there any other hints to this other than the fact that you get teleported into Rapture?
See, when we
Negating the events?
Yeah, that doesn't. I don't think
Well-
it negates it. But when we went to Rapture, I thought that was going to be the ending because
I just
we
think
have.
it was like it was glad handing.
No,
the
but it
people
does
that
kind
played
of
the
work
previous
because
game.
throughout Bioshock Infinite, they call Elizabeth the Lamb, and who was the lead female in Bioshock 1 and 2 is
When did they
Eleanor
call her
Lamb.
The lamb. The lamb is all.
What they call Elizabeth
No,
Lamb throughout the whole freaking game?
So, you know, I
almost said
want to
movie.
get back to that negating what Owen Harper said, because I think that's sharp. So maybe you guys can clear this up for me, because this is one of the, I think for the most part, it's a very cohesive narrative,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think it makes sense. You dig
Yeah.
deep enough, there's some
Sure.
holes.
Absolutely.
I agree with you.
The one thing that I was actually would like you guys to opine on would be, so you remember the end of Bioshock when Ryan locks down the bathysphere, and only somebody with Ryan's DNA can activate the bathysphere, and we actively see Booker do that through the rift.
Yeah.
Right. So was that just a nod to Bioshock 1, or was this?
Or is that another dimension?
Literally, because
Right.
you can draw weird parallels here between Booker
The Bioshock
Jack.
universe takes place far after where
Right.
the
Yeah.
Infinite, like as far as like the technology and timeline.
Yeah.
So for all we know, the Ryan genetic line could be an
Afterwards.
offshoot of Comstock. for
Right,
that
and that's
matter.
because there's so many parallels. The Big Daddy and the
Well, you have
Songbird.
infinite
and the-
parallels.
Yeah, I mean
The
exactly.
handyman.
I
The
wanna say-
handyman are like
I will say
littler
this,
versions.
once you start to try and describe
Yeah.
it and get off on this, like you end up creating your own little tendrils.
But
But
that's
look,
what's fun about it.
here's my
It
issue
is
though.
fun,
Let me
but
lay down what my
you can't hold it as you can't hold it as canon.
I
Like,
wanna-
you can't say that is.
I've
what
been
they're
named the
gonna use.
expert of Bioshock
Well, let me.
Infinite. by the
I
way.
want to lay out what my issue specifically was, though, with this whole idea, which is that you have rifts that open up and that people can see into the future, right? And presumably that's why they have music. That's a big thing in the game, which is why Jeremiah Fink's brother became rich, was
Yeah,
because of
yeah.
the music. Jeremiah Fink became big because he saw rifts into creating this machinery. And then you have, presumably, the reason that we have vigors in the game is because there's a rift into the Bioshock world where they presumably pulled out that from the Bioshock world, the splicing and all that. But I think that created an issue with me throughout the entire game, where I was wondering, why do we have vigors in this world? I was wondering that the entire time. And if these vigors
for Bioshock or for
Bioshock
Infinite
specifically.
Why do we have vigors?
Wait, no. I know why it was explained, but while I was playing the game, I didn't understand why vigors existed. And if they did exist in this world, why is it that nobody uses them, even though you find them everywhere? There's only the firemen.
There's no
Nobody
utilitarian
uses them.
aspect for
And
them.
now that it's implied that they got them from the world of Bioshock, that's where they got them. Why aren't everyone in the world of Bioshock Infinite becoming splicers? Because it messes you the F up.
Yeah, I think that was a miss. There was a
Whoever brought it over, which was Fink, I think, was able to bring it over and produce
Yeah,
them. I
Fink
think he
was
may
it.
have perfected it. That's why it's an aerosol, a drink, as opposed to a syringe or a mutagen.
sure. There was a
that's
narrative
reading-
miss.
That
There
is
would've
a
been
big
really-
hole for me that bothered me throughout the entire game.
And there would have been a really
One of the
elegant.
many plot holes.
And there could have been a really elegant way to solve that, right? Like, maybe a poster that says, if you see somebody using those vigors, report them. Something, something that's been outlawed.
But here's what I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen the coolest thing to me about this world is this steampunk-based world, and you have the Skyhook, which is a really cool weapon that's brand new to the game, that's violent as all hell, but it's really cool, and it's this steampunkish thing that you use. And if they wanted to have these vigor powers, why not be creative and find steampunk ways to do it that would have made sense within this world of Columbia? That to me, that would have made a lot more sense and made me accept it a lot more.
The way that the vigors are represented is very uneven. The undertow vigor, for instance, completely transforms your hands, and like you see barnacles and pots
I
start to
love
pop
that.
up on your hand, and
Yeah.
your hands. But then, like the bucking bronco, your hands just like start tearing apart and bleeding, and like. But then there's there's another one. I think it was the rushing one. What is it? The
Charge.
Yeah. And it's just like waves. It's just light going over your hand. So I felt a lot less a part of the vigors when playing Bioshock Infinite than I did with the atom powers in Bioshock.
Well,
the original.
Adam was central. Like everything revolved around that. It was because the whole point
the
to
vigors
Bioshock
were not central to.
Yeah, the whole Bioshock
Infinite.
was about power unchecked. Andrew Ryan wanted to create a world where there was no oversight to powerful people, and what ended up happening was total anarchy. That was the point of it. You don't have that. I'm not so sure what the hell the point to Bioshock Infinite was.
Well,
Well,
let's
the
take a-
racism thing was brought up at the beginning and kind of dropped by
Oh,
the
I
end
love
too.
that.
Let's take a step back, actually, and outside of the crazy plot. But I want to talk about how we felt playing the game, because there are some crazy themes present here, right? Religion,
Yeah.
race,
Yeah.
American exceptionalism, existentialism, and I think this game was awesome to me because, and that's why I was excited to come here and
Yeah.
talk about it today, because, like, I think it's incredibly bold. I don't pull the trigger for the first 30 minutes in a shooter. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? And they just a first-person baptism right out of the gate. So I'm interested to see how you guys felt as you were playing, because that, and it bookends nicely, right? They've got that 30 minutes at the beginning where you don't shoot, and then they've got the end where it's just they give you a falling action. You know, like every game ever, it's like you kill the boss and then
Yeah.
roll credits. This actually lets you bathe in kind of the repercussions of what you just did. I thought it was
It's
fantastic.
paced amazingly well. It's like a movie, a story, a book.
Well,
and
that's the thing to me.
The pacing is consistent in that, like, I don't feel like any part of the game is separate from the other.
I actually found, and this is my gripe with it, is that I found I was really enticed at the beginning of the game, and then I got really bored halfway through the game and did not care anymore.
Wait, what?
But then I just didn't care anymore because
About
again,
what area
well,
was
again,
that?
like once you start going to Finkton and all that, I just started not caring. But then I started, and then it took me a while to catch on to Elizabeth. I was like, oh wow, what are these riffs? These are cool. And then they just kept on not explaining it. And then the ending was really cool to me and blew me away. I love the ending.
Yeah.
I love the ending. But to me, this felt like this could have been a movie, as opposed to Bioshock, which felt like, wow, there's no way they could have pulled off the Bioshock the way that I felt emotionally without it being a game.
Well, Rapture was
They
more of a
could've pulled off
character.
Bioshock as a movie, I thought, better than the Bioshock.
But
Infinite.
Bioshock, though, you play as this character where you realize that you yourself as a character have been doing all of these things because that person said the "would you kindly."
That was
That's
amazing.
And you as a character,
That was amazing.
I didn't
you
have that
but here,
moment, by the
you
way,
as a
with
character
Bioshock
though,
Infinite
You
at
didn't?
all.
but you as a character
didn't
are
know.
making those
Oh, yeah.
decisions, and that's what makes it important as a game.
Because I
with
kinda-
Infinite, it could have been a movie.
With Infinite, I kind of felt like I was Comstock. Like, I like before before you're supposed to have figured it out in the game. I felt like it could have been possible way ahead of time,
No.
especially with the AD on the back of my hand and the fact that he knew about it and he knew so much about me and he was able to direct the town.
No, that
to
happened
look out
to
for
me. I knew I was about to finish Bioshock Infinite, and I sat down on my couch and I was eating cereal, and I was just thinking about what
Good
I'd
call,
played
cereal.
and everything I'd done in the game, and I pieced everything together.
Okay.
But you didn't do that with the original Bioshock.
No, and then I was like, that would suck.
Thing hit you like full force in the face when you walked in the room. And
No,
he's
I
like,
totally agree.
Would you
You're like,
kindly?
Yeah.
So the ending of Infinite really didn't shock me because I'd already pieced it all together.
But to an extent, I think.
But I was actually mad. I was screaming at my TV
Really?
because I was so mad that I'd figured it out. I was just pissed.
I want a YouTube video of people's reactions to the end of
I
this.
called my best friend. I was like, "You never guessed what I did." I was so mad.
It's really interesting that you said that, Dave. I actually liked the ending a little bit better. Like it blew my mind, the Would You Kindly. But this was such a slow burn, and I think it's interesting what you said about doing those actions and having that mechanic actually make that work. I actually felt more attached probably to Anna than I would have in a movie.
See, it's funny because I have a lot of friends who told me the same thing as what you're echoing, because we got into Bioshock discussions about how much they cared about Elizabeth, and I found I didn't care about her any more than I would for any other game character that I played with.
I kept trying to have sex with her.
Part of that was, but part of that was the
How'd that work
whole.
out for you?
But I mean, part of that was the game. To me, the story-breaking thing in the whole was the vigors that bothered me from the get-go.
You just couldn't get past
I was immediately pulled out from the story at the very get-go of the game because that did bother me. So it pulled me away from it. So I didn't get as attached to Elizabeth.
We talked about this. All those extra things should have been just embellishments. The music what's his name? That guy that ran the music store and had a rift in his music store and was like,
Fink's brother.
Yeah.
Fink's brother had a rift that he was able to listen to music through. But
How good was that Beach Boys cover?
That was great. But it only leaked through into the world. It wasn't like you had a music machine attached to your arm like the Vigors were. And I think the Vigors were so tertiary.
Yeah.
They didn't they could have been taken out, and Bioshock Infinite could have still been an amazing game.
It really works. I felt a crazy connection actually to Elizabeth, and I didn't realize how powerful that was until the end. Right? You remember that scene? So when you're going to the cradle, and you show up at Wounded Knee, but there's nobody there, right? And then he turns around. Booker turns around, and Elizabeth's there, but instantly it's not his Elizabeth. You remember? He said, "What does he say?" He says, "Who are you?"
I thought that was due to.
You know what? That was actually the one thing that did bother me about the ending was that because it's such a sudden change. Because all of a sudden, until you get to the end, it's the Elizabeth that you care about and like. But there's this sudden shift where all of a sudden she's a demigod and she's all powerful and she doesn't really have emotions anymore all of a sudden. And that sudden shift bothered me because it wasn't gradual. And I get it. It's because all of a sudden you've skipped ahead to the future and you've skipped 6 months.
Well, no, but like, I think you're crazy. I think actually, if anything,
I'm crazy.
I thought so that was they talk about variables and constants, right? And so I think when that Elizabeth shows up and the other iterations of all these different Elizabeths show up, even like the 2010 E3 demo Elizabeth showed up, and they say by what?
Can we just talk about that 1 second?
Okay.
I was super pissed at that. The fact that what they showed in the demo, nothing like that exists in the game. Elizabeth uses her powers to open up a rift to a point where
that would have been cool.
There's not any animals in Columbia. There's no horses. She doesn't use her powers.
Well, there's the
like
robot
that
horses that you walk by.
Anyway, continue, please.
Well, I was just gonna say that's when I realized that I really connected with her because she says they're going to baptize you, and they say, by what name will you be known? And then one Elizabeth grabs you and says, Zachary Comstock, in a really loving way. And then the other one says Booker DeWitt in this crazy loving way. And I felt like that was establishing the fact that there are constants and there are variables, but that love, that connection was always going to be a constant. And it really actually touched me.
Yeah. Okay.
Bioshock, all of the Bioshock games. Even Bioshock 2, it's the few games that actually make me have an emotional reaction to the game. The only thing that I felt was missing in Bioshock Infinite was the character of Columbia. In Bioshock 1 and 2, Rapture is its own character.
Yeah.
It's breathing, it's living, but Columbia was just a city.
I agree, and I thought it was really cool when you first enter Columbia. That was such a cool environment.
Gorgeous.
And when the barbershop quartet comes up,
so good.
The way they introduced you to things, everything in Bioshock Infinite was
then all of a sudden
amazing.
it kind of just melts away to just another place.
Yeah.
To me, and whereas Bioshock, as you said, Rapture was a living, breathing character.
Well, what took me out of Columbia a lot is at the beginning area when you're first starting to what is it called? Explore. A lot of the AI there was not enough variables between them. It was like that guy with
hats.
that hat is right over there.
The hat thing.
And
Everyone
that
talks
was
about that
throwing
thing.
me off.
What? Let me ask you guys this, because I think this is one of the reasons I was so excited to talk about this. Like these themes, I keep coming back to this. How do you think they handled race in
Oh,
Bioshock?
before when you
I
say
love
that,
they went there. I adored it.
I do want to
I did
read this
too.
comment from the chat because you are saying that and bringing it. Was that Webslinger XX on the chat says, with religion, racism, etc., there isn't too many games out there that have done that, and when
No.
they did, there was negative aftermath because of it. And you're right, that was really cool how they introduced racism at the beginning. Where also,
It was
when
in your face.
When I was given the rock, and then all of a sudden they unveil it, and there's
Yeah.
a black person you have to throw it. I was like, whoa!
It's the interracial marriage.
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
insane.
No, but then they went back in. If you had thrown it at the announcers and they were in the vending machine game arcade area, and they were going to help you out, and you can go into the whites only bathroom. And no, I thought it was done really well.
I think there should have been an achievement for actually throwing the softball at that interracial couple.
Yeah.
Some negative mark that goes, hey, you're a racist. Or just
You're an asshole.
That would be great.
How do you feel they handled? I mean, so they introduced it in a very powerful way.
Yeah.
How do you
Yes.
feel they delivered on that? I'm curious to see what you guys
loved
think.
it.
I didn't think that they really delivered on it. I think it was an idea
I think
or
they
a
delivered it as
theme.
much as they could
Well, I think
without
it
was-
really becoming it
A
too
problem.
sickening
Weak.
and too debilitating and too
It-
much about what the story
Well,
was.
it was
focusing
kind of
on.
it was kind of like it was kind of weak. Like they introduced it, and you think it's going to be this really like big, powerful, driving, like really like a huge theme, and by the end they're just like they're not necessarily like they're not even really sticking to it at the end.
That was sort of what I found was I liked how they did the beginning.
Yeah.
By the end, I'd kind of forgotten that was even an issue in the game.
Interesting.
Or maybe it was, but you just got used to seeing it because I saw it a lot throughout the game. I felt that I saw it a lot.
To be heavy-handed.
Very
for me.
heavy-handed. I'm kind of two minds. I think one piece
But it
is
was heavy-handed back then.
One piece was super interesting, right? Was the idea of Zachary Comstock getting baptized, and instead of he just changes the narrative. So all of a sudden he creates a narrative where he wasn't scalping savages at Wounded Knee. He wasn't scalping women and children. He was ridding the world of scavages. And
I did like that. I thought that was brilliant.
Really interesting,
Yeah.
right?
That was the
'Cause you
divergence
create your own
between
history.
the two different characters.
Yes. And so
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. I thought Daisy was very ham-fisted.
Yes.
Miss Fitzroy.
And her morals just disappear.
Oh, jeez.
Like,
Yeah.
They show like at the end when who does she stab again? She kills Fink,
well, she's-
right?
She kills the young girl.
Well, no,
and
she
then-
wants to kill the kid, and then
Yeah.
that's when Elizabeth saves the kid.
Right.
She kills Fink, but like remember, and then the beginning they talk about how terrible it is they're depicted as such savages, but by the end she's smearing the blood down her face, and I think that was
Yeah.
just it was the one miss in the game for me is how they actually address race.
Yeah.
I think.
But I think you had to, not everybody could be a great
but I will say,
character.
though-
you had to paint everybody
I
in
will
very
say, though, that-
stark, you had to paint most of the other characters in stark
I like
tones.
Daisy as the contrast of even that side of it's not good. So I actually like that it was contrasted that, oh, you think here's the great side that's coming up, the rebellion,
Yep.
and it turns out they're not that great either. And I like that aspect of it.
Totally, I think that's a big theme in all the.
But I do agree
Bioshocks.
it was weird when she suddenly turned crazy at the end.
But it was I think it was a miss. But one of those prevailing themes in Bioshock is that power corrupts, right? And like to an extent, I mean, you can be a freedom fighter one day and end up being terrible as you come into power.
Yeah.
And I think they illustrated that well through the Vox.
I think
Yeah.
what some people don't pay attention to is that the unbaptized Booker is still, after so many years, the laggard and like the failure, and is willing to go again on yet another unguided mission, which is the Lutece's mission to
Right.
save his daughter that's now growing up. And then the baptized Booker, what the hell? This guy who was a failure not more than a couple years ago, 20 or 15 or whatever, is able to raise an entire city in Colombia
Yeah.
off the ground.
Well, that's just it.
Like,
How the hell did he? Where
Yeah,
did he get the money? How did he meet the Lutece?
it's implied that the government helped him and then covered it up, meaning like because he went rogue and took control of the city, like
After being
that the government
baptized,
ended up.
Yeah, I
He
think he met the
became-
Lutesses, though.
right, but he actually formed a congregation and became like whatever pastor, sermon guy, whatever, one of those
Bro.
guys.
Pastor
and then
bro.
he grew up the community through his church.
Yeah, I mean, I just imagine it happening somehow. I wasn't too thrown off by that, but let's go ahead and talk about the gameplay elements because we've been talking a lot about the story, and also the audio. And I don't know if you guys have this audio issue that you want to address with the whole voxophones and all that, but I found in Bioshock, if I listened to a voxophone, it was really loud, so I could go around and do other things.
Yeah.
Whereas in Bioshock Infinite, I was having a constant audio issue where if I listened to a voxophone, it was way quieter than all the other sound effects, and there's no way I could adjust it.
There was.
That wasn't on. No.
So I would
I
have to
was
stop
playing on a
everything I was
PC.
doing
I pretty much stopped.
And I played on a 360, and I had to stop everything I was doing so I could listen to a voxophone.
Yeah, I didn't. I would listen to the voxophone and then run around and still or not like run around, but still pick up all the shit that's around it, all the goodies.
Yeah.
All that half-eaten pineapples and trash cans.
But here's
There's a picture of Booker with Elizabeth on his back, and he's like holding a bear. Someone did an animation out of it, like had drawn a cartoon of it.
Yeah.
With Booker running around. He's got a barrel under one arm. He's opening a chest. He's like stuffing apples and food in his face, and he's like super fat, and he has like Elizabeth on his back, and he's just running through the world of Columbia.
That's awesome.
Eating everything.
Now, with the gameplay of Infinite, I didn't think it was that strong, but then again, I don't think any Bioshock gameplay has ever been that good.
Well, I would argue
with the
that
combat.
I would argue
enjoyed
that
Bioshock too.
I would
When
argue that
setting up-
Bioshock had a better combat.
Setting up the combat
Yeah,
with the Big
Infinite.
Daddy.
It's getting better.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's getting
Well,
better.
and I'll say why when we
Battling
get
the
there.
Big Daddies was a thing that I had to set myself up for. I was
I
setting
loved it.
traps. I was monitoring my power level. I was preparing for each one, and I was like, "Hey, could I throw the bees at him, or could I trap him in a whirlpool? Can I electrocute him?
Yeah.
And do I have enough of the tripwires to basically blow him up?" I never had that. Even with the handymen, which were in this game, they're equivalent to the Big Daddy.
They were the bastards.
Like, I just took them. I just basically was like, okay, do I have enough shotgun rounds?
Right,
Let
you
me
just run
around
shoot
his back with
the shotgun.
rounds on 'em.
Well,
I
a
never
game that-
used the Vigors in the same way that I used the plasmids
A
in
game that
Bioshock 2.
plays like Bioshock and has all the vigors and powers and shit you can do, but I think actually physically plays better is Dishonored.
Yeah.
I think that it controls
You can
better.
make that argument.
But-
I did agree with you though, Grant, wholly about the lack of the Big Daddy, because I think generating tension, like authentic tension in a game, is very
I
difficult.
was scared
but-
to engage the Big
I
Daddy.
totally
That's what
agree.
I thought Songbird was
also
going to
Same,
be.
on the
Yes.
same.
And then they didn't do it.
I know.
Which was great. They just messed with your
Yeah, that's
expectation
true.
the entire time.
But you would still get scared every time you'd start to hear the Songbird music. You'd be like, "Fuck."
But here's the other thing, though, with Bioshock compared to the Bioshock Infinite gameplay, is for me, if you're playing Bioshock, right, you hear the first time that there's 5 enemies around you, which is more than one, you're like, how the hell do I handle this? Because there's more than one enemy. And you really have to kind of approach each enemy situation differently of how you're going to handle
Yeah.
it. Not even just the Big
A
Daddies.
Big Daddy,
whereas
a group
with
of certain
Bioshock,
splicers, some of them had different powers,
Right, and
so
that's-
you had to,
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
after them in a certain way.
and that's why the Bioshock gameplay worked for me really well. Whereas Bioshock Infinite, everything that they did was another set piece for them to throw as many enemies as possible at you, and then you move on to another set piece with as many enemies as possibly being thrown at you. So from a gameplay perspective, even though it's very similar in the way that you play the game, the way they handle it with the design aspect of throwing the enemies at you, the way the enemies were designed, it didn't work nearly as well
What
for me.
weapon did you guys use
The Big
most?
Daddies for me were the
Shotgun.
Patriots.
Yeah, I used a shotgun.
all I
I thought
Yeah.
those
Shotgun
were
all the
good.
time.
This is all I did. I used Bucking Bronco and the shotgun,
Yeah,
and my
I used the
fights
shotgun
were
the
over.
entire
Return to
game
Sender.
instantly.
Return to Sender was the vigor to use.
I did enjoy the murder of crows along with the fire.
Yeah.
It did,
It
yeah,
was
but the
so
murder of crows
satisfying.
didn't kill them a
Yeah, it
lot.
didn't do very good.
So,
it wasn't powerful.
it wasn't powerful enough.
Did you light them on
If
fire?
you had items
No.
of clothing that helped out some of your
Yep.
different vigors,
Oh, yeah.
that like you would initially hit someone with the fire or the murder of crows and the devil's kiss, and it could chain onto other characters.
Yeah, it was so great.
I've seen people really use them to some great extent, but it wasn't as intuitive as it was in Bioshock 1
Sure.
and 2.
And so Lions Fan on the chat actually agrees with you, Rachel, by the way, that anytime he would hear the music for the Songbird, he would freak the hell out and have to press so
Terrifying.
many buttons fast because he was afraid and not
well,
want
I
to get
had
killed.
that same reaction with the Patriots when I would see them before they kind
Patriots,
of
I didn't.
turned on.
I just opened up a rift with a distraction, ran around to the other side of the Patriots, and shot their gear with the
They were
shotgun.
so
Again, the shotgun was my
creepy,
go-to.
though.
Way overpowered,
They
I
were
think.
so creepy.
Did you guys take advantage of the skylines much? Did you use the skyhook?
Yeah, I would use the skyhook. Well,
Skyhook I abused.
Yeah.
Okay.
if I need to recharge
using
my
the
shield,
skyhook-
skyhook.
Yeah.
Using the skyhook, I was fucking Spider-Man.
See, I love the
I was
burst on it.
jumping
Awesome.
around arenas quicker than I think a handyman could have,
Yeah.
or a Big Daddy, or anything. Like Booker was too super powered with the skyhook. It was
Okay.
interesting how easy it was to completely change. Like Other games would have had you run towards the skyhook, jump, and then fall to your death.
Right.
And it was amazing, I thought, how they were able to create that as a part of the game
'Cause it was
that
magnet.
worked well. It worked.
Your skyhook was magneted.
Yeah,
But
explain
we're
it.
all on
How
the same
fucking
page.
Fucking magnets. How do they work?
It would rip your arm out of the socket if you don't.
I
do
know,
some of those
I know.
falls.
But
Yeah.
this is a game. But I mean, so look, I actually, even though I was talking a lot of negative
I totally
aspects.
expect him to come. Like, oh shit! There's an arm hanging on the.
So even though I was talking a lot of negative aspects about the story, I still enjoyed it overall.
I
It was
loved
more of the gameplay that bothered me with this because I love good game design, and I majored in game design. That's what I really try to pay attention to. And the other aspect of it was this exploration aspect that bothered me, where they really try to encourage exploration with finding voxophones, which help you out with the story,
And the ciphers.
and the ciphers and everything.
I
But
didn't
then
find them
they
all.
lock an area after you leave it, so you can never go back
Yeah.
again. Whereas in Bioshock,
Some
they,
of the areas
still
were
in
locked.
Bioshock,
You could
they
go back a
locked-
lot.
they
But I
locked
mean,
some of
but
the
they
areas in
locked it-
Bioshock too.
But in
Yeah.
They would
Bioshock,
prevent you from
but
going
in
back.
the original Bioshock, though, you can still really go back and explore and
Yeah.
find these things that you missed that help expand the story, that help build up the world that you're in. Whereas here, I would be so OCD about, did I miss a voxophone? Did I miss something? Because I can't come back here ever
But
again.
I'm like that in
And it
all video
bothered
games
me.
anyways. I have to clear an area before I move on.
I'm like that, but I never felt that pressure
I'm not
in
worried
Bioshock.
that in Gears of War because I don't collect all the dog tags.
I
miss out like an
do.
integral part of the story.
I do.
With Bioshock, I'm worried that if I don't find all these voxophones, I'm gonna miss out on something.
It would
that
make
was
me feel
really
like I
key to
missed
me
out a
understanding
huge-
why the hell we've got the Lutece twins, why
Yeah.
Comstock is the way he is,
because
why
that was what
people act
explained
a
the
certain way.
Lutesses.
It's a bold decision behind that much exposition behind voxophones. I really, I mean, it was
it's
a
a
whole
bold
different
it's a
experience.
bold decision to have so much of the game's exposition exist in things that are inaccessible, like the voxophones,
Yeah.
things that are
I
hanging
love
on
that,
walls.
though.
Well,
like
here's the only-
message.
I love the
It is
voxophones.
good.
It
It's
forces
nice
you to actually
explore like that.
explore and take in the world.
It does force you, but I think that you can have your cake and eat it too with this kind of stuff. You can create a game that does both.
Like to me, it was just to me. I like the
who doesn't
voxophones.
want cake and
I agree with you, Rachel. I love the voxophones explaining the story. I like that aspect, but the fact that I felt so pressured to have to find them if I wanted to learn the story, and I could never go back because I literally ran through an area at one point. I didn't realize it was going to close off behind me. I turned around. I was like, wait, I think I missed something. Turned around, it's closed off. I'm like, crap. Well, now I'm going to turn off my game and restart and pray it didn't it didn't
Like
autosave
autosave it right
anything.
there, yeah.
Right, because I want to get this voxophone I might have just missed, and that really bothers me for this type of game.
I think the only disconnect I had there with exploration was that. Do you guys remember that time where Elizabeth's just screaming? She's being tortured.
Yeah.
And you have to go through this
Oh
room.
my God, that
And I
was
like,
so intense.
I could go. I know. I
I'm
was
just making bad
wrecked by it.
screen noises.
I
I was
know.
wrecked by it, but I'm like,
gamer
I gotta
thought,
check
like,
that
I need to
pineapple.
explore.
Yeah, it forced me
I
to
had
listen to
that
her
too.
scream more. It was
I
the
know.
worst.
I had the exact same
The
feeling. I was
worst.
like, I gotta explore because I can't save it right now because I might
No.
miss this and I can't go back and get it.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Just hold on for a few
Yeah,
seconds,
hold on.
dear.
I know you're an act. I need a pineapple.
Maybe that says something about our personalities and who we are as people. If,
Well, I
like,
think our
play
decisions
different
throughout the
games different
game
ways.
I see like a
would
free,
say a lot about
I see
us.
like a free Xbox One and PS4 over in the corner, and then I see Rachel and Grant dying in the corner. I'm like, hold on a second,
get
I
there.
need to get this free Xbox One and PS4.
judge.
They can
Don't
hold
I
on
will be
for
back
another
for
2
you.
seconds. It's
Let me
still only
die.
going to be 2
That's
seconds.
fine.
2 seconds. They can live.
Yeah.
They'll survive.
I can hold out.
Do you know what? Have you guys played it a second time?
Yeah.
I actually
played a
didn't.
second, and
I'm
I
going
started a
to.
third. I just couldn't get through.
I'm excited.
I started playing Bioshock right when I started reviewing games.
Okay.
I started playing it. Or no, actually it was when I really started doing it, and I just couldn't dedicate another 20 hours into it the third time around.
I think I would encourage people to do so because once you know the secret behind Columbia, you'll see that there's 0 lines of throwaway dialogue in this. For example, do
Yeah.
you guys remember you land at the beach?
Yeah.
You land at the beach and you kind of can walk around and explore. And there's this woman talking to her 2 friends. I don't know if you remember this, but she's talking about marriage and she wants to get married, but she's not sure because
Yeah.
every man is 2 men. And that is just right in your like it can be so different. And he says it's throughout the entire game. There are throwaway things like that.
They
like,
do throw that at least the 2 different universes in your face constantly, especially with Lutece. They're not technically
love
twins.
Lutece's.
They're 2
They're
different
the same
versions
person,
of the
yeah.
same.
Right.
I like their
right.
music too.
Yeah,
That
I did
point
too.
when you land on the beach for me was the best point in the game. Doesn't matter meeting Elizabeth, doesn't matter the Songburn, doesn't matter the baptism. When I fell out of the tower and I thought I was falling back down to earth,
Yeah, that's
and
what I thought
I was
too.
free
Yeah.
of the world, and I woke up in another surreal, like, technically speaking, I could have encountered, it was Battleship Bay. That's
Yeah,
where you
Battleship
land.
Bay.
I could have encountered Battleship Bay, the things that I first saw when I woke up, in Earth. in America at that point in time.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was much brighter. It was more. And then I looked around and I was like, the water's falling off.
Yep.
There's cities. I was like, oh shit, I'm
I like the
still here.
music there
Girls
too.
just want to have funs playing.
Yeah.
Over this
Yeah.
game.
I did enjoy that, though. I agree. That was a cool
That
point.
was more of a feeling of dread in me than the Songbird,
Really?
than the
Songbird.
Handyman, and even all the dingy, dark stuff that they showed you in the latter half of the game. That point when I thought I was free of it for a moment, and
Yep.
that was still like a large portion
Yeah.
of the game. It was like 3-4 hours into it at least. That freaked me out, like to know that I was still trapped.
That's awesome. I would definitely encourage people to play through a second time. There's so many moments where they're tipping their cap to, hey, you're actually Comstock. Like, do you remember when he finds out that Comstock's tithing 50%, and he goes, I need to get into that profit business. Of course you do.
I do like I like that aspect where when I realized everything with Lou Testis, I was like, wow, that's so cool thinking back about what were they doing. And then the whole also the choice that they give, which was an interesting developer choice where they give you the thing for Elizabeth to wear, which is like, do you want the bird or the cage? And it doesn't end up doing anything story wise. And no matter what you choose, they're just like, interesting choice.
Right.
And you realize the reason that's in there is just so it's another thing of they're doing one of their tests just to see, hey,
Constants and
like one of those
variables.
constants and variables tests.
Yeah.
And it makes it much more interesting
What
on a
did you
second
guys
playthrough.
choose?
I
I
chose
think
the
we
bird.
all chose the bird.
I
You're
chose
a
the bird.
Cage.
You're a monster.
I told the
dude.
grind he chose the cage.
I thought they were fucking with me, so I was like, "Why am I gonna like?" I thought the bird represented the songbird, so I was like, "Oh shit, if I pick the obvious choice, maybe I'm setting myself up for like the monumental disappointment. Like they're gonna pull the curtain away, and it's like, you chose the bird. Well, you chose fucking wrong. That's what I thought. Like,
monster.
because that's
I
what
was
they did.
wondering that
At the very
too.
beginning of the game, they're like, "Step right up, play this innocent game where you bean the minority with a rock and try to kill them."
Did everybody choose the announcer?
Yeah, I
For the
chose the
couple?
announcer.
I chose the announcer. I couldn't make that.
Patrick's like, oh no, I chose the
Yeah,
stage.
yeah, that's why I think
No,
there should be a special.
nobody on a show is going to say I chose the first on the stage.
I
I'm
was
racist.
so worried. That's why I think there should be that.
My friend chose the couple to see what would happen.
Yeah.
Nothing different.
No.
Okay.
Same thing.
How cool is the tutorial in this game? Like I've never, when you go through the carnival and you don't even realize that you're playing a tutorial. It's
Yeah.
just so organic.
I,
It's
Yeah.
so
I
well
actually
done.
did realize that's what that was at the carnival.
Sure.
But I like
it
the
felt
time
I
that it gives you.
realized. I didn't mind it. It didn't bother me. I'm just saying I did realize that's what
Some
they
of
were
those
doing.
games are freaking hard.
No, yeah, and I tried, and one of the things that pissed me off was like I needed to get like the first time around, I needed to do the best that I could.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I
I'm the
can't
same way
leave
too.
until I
Yeah,
get it
yeah.
all.
I was like, no, I'm going back so I can hit everybody.
Yeah. Jeez.
But overall, though, what did you guys take away from the game? What did you guys pull away?
I'll let you guys go first because I have this
million
kind of like
thoughts.
I have something that's more like, hey, if you don't want to worry about it, you shouldn't because this is what it means.
I mean, my thoughts in general, what I took away was I did enjoy the story. I thought it was really cool. The ending for me is what made the game for me. But gameplay-wise, I didn't love it. And I do think it's a fun game to play and it's worth playing, but I really don't think it's like the best game ever that a lot of people were saying coming out of it because I think game design is integral to a video game.
Sure.
I think this could have worked as a movie, and if you wanted it to work as a game, the game design needed to be better. But the story was good. It was a good story. That's kind of what my takeaway was.
Go ahead.
All right, so here's what I'll say. I'm with you, Dave, on this. I was definitely on the bandwagon of game of the year, no question, best game of all time. I actually ended up moment to moment having more fun with Tomb Raider, for example. I enjoyed the
God,
combat.
Yeah, I
you're
did too.
killing me.
I did too.
Moment to moment, the combat. Is it a better game? No, it's objectively. Bioshock is objectively a better game than Tomb Raider.
Sure, it's
I'm
all
not
objective.
making that case. There's no. I mean, it is. This is the first game probably ever that made me want to like do a book report. I just
Yeah.
want to analyze this. And I mean, it was. I've been. There's rarely is there a game that's in my conscious for as long as this was afterward.
Yeah.
And I think it's rare also that a game can make you feel things, just authentically
Yeah.
feel. And at the end of the game, I really actually did have a relationship with Elizabeth. So I thought the game was fantastic.
I had a good relationship with Elizabeth, but I was hurt more
had a
about what I
creepy one.
did in Bioshock 2.
I mean, I guess
I was
I-
like, oh fuck.
I hope
But the
this
thing
game-
I would say about you saying feeling, though, I mean, I don't disagree with you. Everyone's
yeah.
entitled to everything. But, I mean, I know, Rachel, you hate JRPGs and that style of game, but I love those games. And all those games make you feel for every character because you are spending so much time with
Sure.
them. You care about them. So I'd say there are a lot of games, but they're not the type of games that most first-person shooter fans are going to play.
Yeah. I think where I'll leave this is I really want this game to do well. Because I think
I think it already did. You're good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it did well. I want to continue to sell for forever because I want people to be able to take risks. I'm very tired of, the Avengers was a fantastic movie, but it was safe. Like Iron Man 3, it was safe. There are a lot of these
Iron
AAA
3 was like
boring,
rubber
right?
duckies.
So I'm at a point where like I'm into things making tough decisions. The fact that he took on race, religion, American exceptionalism,
Yeah.
I'll agree with
existentialism,
that.
it's bold, and I'd like to be able to see more innovation in the space, and that's why write
Yeah.
Ken Levine a blank check next time.
No, I'll agree. I do like that they took a risk with it. Definitely, totally agree with that.
Yeah, I want to see. I think it's a phenomenal game. It's not my game of the year. It's my runner-up. But I want to see more games like this.
Amen.
That go really deep into story and try to make us feel something, but can do it so subtly. And I think their attention to detail is amazing.
Yeah.
I want more.
You want more?
Yeah.
What do you guys want out of DLC?
Wait, Grant, what is
No
your opinion?
multiplayer. I don't want
No,
multiplayer.
I don't think we'll have.
I like
Fuck that
DLC, but
shit.
I have no idea where they're gonna go. With
What do you want? I mean, if you were writing the DLC, what do you want to see?
Latisse,
fucking
I want.
idea.
I don't
Yes,
want to
it
play. I don't want to play
I would say
Booker
there's going to
anymore.
be different parts of Columbia, like the Finkton Industries
Yep.
area, that
Yeah.
they'll open up for
I mean, honestly, I'm
exploration.
pretty
That's the only
glad-
thing they can do. They can't really modify the overarching story. That
I
way.
thought it was like a good like closed book type of thing where like okay, we understand, we got it, and I wouldn't necessarily need to draw more out.
I'd love to play as a Latisse.
I know Latisses are awesome.
I'd love
Okay.
that. I'd love to play as Comstock, Rising to Power.
Oh God.
Third-person shooter as Songbird.
Yeah, Songbird. I don't think
That
we
to be
need.
two.
I think Booker and Elizabeth.
Flight Simulator.
I think both Booker and Elizabeth's stories are closed, so I'm done with
It's
that.
gonna be
hope so.
Elizabeth.
Yeah.
It's gonna be Elizabeth.
But
It's
so
gonna be Elizabeth.
Well, then
Us in our
they
prison?
can skin that AI and have
Yeah.
some other companion, right? Maybe.
so Grant, what was your takeaway?
My bottom line is that most of the plausible descriptions are purely conjecture at this point, because
Yeah.
Ken Levine and the writers on the story basically left themselves intentional loopholes. It's impossible for us to say, like, okay, well, this is what happened with Lutess, this is what, because they left themselves these loopholes in order for them to create like a
world,
story that's
yeah.
explainable around things that are purely theoretical, purely magical, and purely religious.
Sure.
So I think that trying to explain the story by fixing those plot holes only crops up more confusing questions. And I wrote that it's like trying to put out a fire and watching another wisp of smoke burst into flames. I
Yeah.
think that like when you're trying to find the best information on this, go to Wikipedia and read what people have written. If you're going to go on the internet and search for it, trust Google with a grain of salt, because most of these articles were written back in March and haven't been edited since. The Wikipedia article, and even the Wikia is badly edited. The Wikipedia article is peer reviewed and people are adding to it on a constant basis. So the plot
Usually Wikias
description,
are pretty good though.
the
But
plot description in Wikipedia is pretty
John,
good.
what did you take away?
My general takeaway is that I was disappointed with the story, if only because I could see how it could be tightened or fixed. Like I could see how it could be done better. Like I saw like how they could have tweaked one or two things and just really made it just like narratively that much tighter. So like the characters. The only characters I connected with and I really liked were the Lutesses, but I liked them because they reminded me of Time Lords. So that's the Doctor Who fan.
So
And so as the gameplay goes, I have the same gripes that you do. Now it sounds like I'm saying I freaking hate this game and I'm the malcontent of the group. I actually did enjoy Infinite, not as much as Bioshock, but more than I liked Bioshock 2, oddly enough. I enjoyed Infinite. I do actually encourage people to play the.
If you
yeah,
told
and,
me,
and
like,
you
which
kind of heard me
one-
like constantly criticizing things as well. But I agree with you,
He
John.
told me, lock me in a room for the next 20 hours, or if I only had one of those two games to bring with me on a deserted island, I'd bring Bioshock 2.
and then somehow some electricity.
Two? Really?
Yeah, I enjoyed 2.
I loved two as well. I did. When we got to play
Two's-
Little Sisters, that was
I liked 2.
amazing.
We've discussed
better
it
than
before.
Infinite?
I liked 2.
Oh man,
I like two as
serviceable
well,
at best.
but one was.
It's a fun.
I mean, one to me was the best, but I agree with John. I was giving this a lot of criticism, but I still do. I think it's an enjoyable experience and it's worth
If
having.
only because we could see how it could have been made better. Like we could see like how it could have been just a little bit better. Like it's nitpicky bullshit. And
Sure,
that's why
sure.
we love it.
This game exists in a climate where of Call of Duty clones. Like again, I think this game is right. Like I think it's smart, and I think people should play this game.
Yeah, and a lot of people are talking about on the chat, like Lions fans saying, I think game developers overdo it when they have the multiplayer option. It's such BS. Webslinger says, yeah, no multiplayer is needed here. And I agree. Hopefully this will be a good point that shows that games can sell really well without
Yeah,
the
I
multiplayer.
love that.
So I hope
Yeah,
that.
They made a good conscious decision to ship a story.
Yeah, so Hayden Gordon's on the chat says, boy, do I like a tight narrative. Overly enthusiastic. Thumbs up. Just want to read that out. But yeah, so that's our final takeaways from it. You've heard it from us all. So guys, thank you for joining us this week for our first Game Control Rewind. If you want to hear about The Last of Us. Next week we will be doing The Last of Us and talking about that. But Game Control Rewind is every single week, 1 p.m. Pacific time on AfterBuzzTV.com. Right after Game Control Live, our news discussion show where we talk about all the latest news. Follow Game Control Rewind at GC_Rewind. Check us out on Game Control Tube on YouTube. And once again, guys, I'm Dave Klein. You can follow me at the Dave Klein, Klein, and I am expecting a lot of hateful tweets for all my criticisms.
I'll start with it. Yeah, well, I'm Patrick Dees. You can follow me at P to the D's, and I'll be leading that tweet charge.
I'm Grant. You can follow me on Twitter at GAK. And follow me because I take these developers to task every once in a while on Twitter as well. You find me tweeting at Peter Molyneux.
But I tweet at Peter Molyneux.
Ken Levine, like all of them. They don't tweet back that often, but I do give them a running.
And you can follow me on Twitter at the Raychul.
And that was quick. And John?
You can find me at NowQuick on Twitter, and
He's like, best damn Twitter handle ever.
That is a great Twitter handle. How did you
Twitter follow?
I invite both your arguments and your vitriol, but I stand by what I say on Bioshock, both gameplay and story-wise.
I invite your vitriol. He's asking for it.
Vitriol.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Yep.
We will see you next week. Play Last of Us.
Play Last of Us.
Play it.
It was really good music.
Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff. We would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.